Hello, welcome, Marlene here. Today's video is a sponsored post by JJMG Amazon store. They sent me this new set of Russian piping tips to try out. Should you want to purchase your own, you'll find the link in the description box. And now on to the demonstration. The piping tip set by JJMG Amazon store comes with 12 different tips. I tested them all out on a plate to kind of decide which I wanted to use. You'll find these photos on my Instagram account if you want to see them close up. Here is the first piping tip I decided to try out. I really was intrigued by those zigzag lines. I was curious as to what that would produce. And now on to the step-by-step demonstration. I've got a 61 Wilton and I'm just creating a ruffle around the edge of the cupcake here for some added decoration. And you don't have to do a continuous movement. You can just wiggle and stop, turn your cupcake. Done. Now I'm taking off the piping tip, exposing the plastic just like that, and I'm creating a mound of icing right there to create something for the flowers to build on. Now I'm preparing a piping bag for these Russian flower tips, and here I've got a dark electric purple and I'm just adding some stripes here to my parchment paper, and then I'm just on top of that adding some of the same color, just not as dark, and I'm just spreading that in between the lines. Depending on how many cupcakes you're making, you might want to prepare your pouches you might want to prepare several pouches in advance just to make sure that you can work efficiently and not always have to be making a new one. You do it all at once. And now I'm adding a center yellow part, and now I'm going to connect the electric purple and seal one end and create a cylinder of icing. There's my piping tip, popping that into the piping bag, marking the bag with my scissors, and then you can just move back the tip, cut, and then you have a really perfect fit there. And now I'm going to just cut the plastic wrap to make sure my icing comes out well so that it's not sealed, you see? And now I'm just dropping that into the piping bag like so, and then we'll be able to decorate our cupcakes. There's the icing coming out. There's the icing right there ready to come out. Now, first thing I'm doing here is I'm adding some leaves randomly right here. There. And now I'm grabbing the Russian ball tip. Here it is. I'm grabbing that. And now you have to not touch, squeeze until the icing comes out, and then let the icing connect. Squeeze, let the icing connect, squeeze and pull away. Squeeze, let the icing connect and pull away. There. Now here you see I have a little gap. We're going to come in and put some pretty leaves in there, and nobody will be the wiser with regards to that hole. You see? Gone. Here are the completed cupcakes. You see, by creating that initial mound of icing, it allows the flowers to look more like an actual bouquet. Here's a shot side by side of the cupcakes, one without the ruffle. I really much prefer the cupcakes with that little ruffle. I find it glams them up a little bit. I had trouble deciding which piping tip to try out next. I thought this one kind of looked like a daisy, And so we'll be testing these out in the next demonstration. Going to be repeating the same thing. I really like the look of the ruffle on the edge. So I'm just doing that on all these cupcakes. Here they are now, the ruffles. And so what I'm doing is I'm just spraying this to make them shiny. There. And now I'm going to add some sprinkles to the edges here. I have this pretty confetti and I'm just adding that all along the edge. Like that. Make it very festive. The pearl I find really makes the finish so much more fancy. Alright, let's get the sprinkles there. And now I'm taking off my piping tip like before and doing a dollop in the middle of each to create my base for my flowers like before. We're going to be using a different tip this time. There. And we're going to do leaves, of course, with the flowers. It's so much nicer. I've had my icing in the fridge actually, so it's a little bit stiffer. The icing was getting soft. You just have to be a little bit mindful of that because it can be problematic if your icing is too soft with these tips. Really all it's going to do is create a big mess. It's always better to turn so you can work properly. And leaf here. And there. I had my icing in the fridge. Let's see. You see it's not releasing because it's too cold. I'm just going to leave it on the counter for a second. I think my icing is going to be good now. Let's see. I'm just squeezing till it connects. It touches and then I can pull up. It's still breaking. I'm going to pull that off. It's not too difficult to remove. If you want, you can chill these mounds so that they don't mess up, and then if you do screw up, you can easily peel off the flower you don't like. Let's try again. Yeah, there, it's perfect now. We're getting these pretty little kind of daisy flowers. And you can work so fast with these tips. Look at, I'm just going from one to the other, filling in the direction that's good for me while I'm working there. Consistency is key. You need a stiff icing. If your icing's getting soft, put your piping bag in the fridge to set up a bit. Because if the icing is too soft, they just don't hold their shape. Your hand can heat up the icing in the piping bag, causing problems again. There. Look at how pretty these daisies are. I'm just getting my leaf tip and coming in and adding some leaves here and there. Let's get them slowly out of the way. I'm too crowded here. I'm going to stick my finger in one. And here is the platter of completed cupcakes. I'm pleased. Like I say, the consistency is key. When my icing warmed up, it was just giving me like basically little blobs. It would really clump up to the center and do like a kiss, like a Hershey's kiss. You didn't get the definition anymore of the design. And here's a different angle. So again, just a different version of these little Russian tips and the flowers that you can make with them. After I made my cupcakes, I wanted to try something a little bit more original with these tips, and so I decided to make a doll cake. And this part of the tutorial is very abbreviated. If you want a more kind of in-depth tutorial and execute this project yourself, you'll find the link to this tutorial, the complete step-by-step video, in the description box and at the end of this video in a clickable link. Just touch the screen, and now let's just quickly run through it. I used a 6-inch cake pan, 3 inches high, to bake my cake, and the top is a 6-inch ball cake. I added a crumb coat to all that. My cake was on the tall side. It could have been a little bit shorter, and now I'm simply using a petal tip, a rose tip, to kind of create a seam there where it meets up to the cake board. It was a little bit tricky with the flower tips since they are curved, and this gives me just a nicer seam right at the cake board. This is the piping tip I decided to use. My icing is Delphinium Blue by Wilton, and I decided on an ombre effect. So after I did a few rows of flowers, I put it back in my bowl and mixed in some more white to lighten it up, and that's how I created the fade on the cake. And if you want to hear me talking about correcting any issues and that, like I say, you should watch the really in-depth tutorial. This cake did take an awful lot of buttercream. I made 2 batches to cover this skirt. Probably wouldn't have been as bad if the cake had been shorter, like I said before. And it's just very repetitive. I'm just staggering these flowers all over the surface of the cake. And before I got to the top, I did insert my doll just to be sure that I could hide her little skirt kind of waist area properly, and just finished it off again with the flowers. Once your icing is made, the cake does come together quite quickly. Here it is completed. I really love this color. The Delphinium Blue is probably one of my all-time favorite colors. And this doll, I find that it just is more suited for a more kind of grown-up event. I find the Barbies a little bit juvenile. This gives it like a kawaii look. With regards to her hair decoration, those are just some pearls that I got in the scrapbooking section of my local craft store. Here is a close-up of the 3 piping tips I tried out today. Like I say, this set comes with 12 different ones. If you want to see them close up, visit my Instagram account. I'll have them there. And you'll find the link to purchase them in the description box. Thanks again to JJMG Amazon store for sponsoring this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. And I'll see you next time.